I welcome Vinayak Jhunjhunwala for this podcast. He's a Pied Viper at the Slang Labs. Why I'm saying you this? It's because his journey started from thinking of doing research on pipette tips. Now he's working on balance sheet. So it doesn't just consolidate to anything. His career has seen himself mold him as a person, because when you see his profile, he has been an chief operating officer. It's been like something as in school children just thinking of, okay, let me just go to the science fair and just do the and everything. But he took the responsibility during that time. It gives me an immense pleasure to call Vinayak Jhunjhunwala, because he's one of the committee members in the field where everybody is thinking, okay, management people can never be a part of the tech community. He has broken that barrier and he has come, and he's still an amazing contributor in the tech community. And it gives me an immense pleasure to welcome Vinayak Jhunjhunwala, the Pied Viper in the Slang Labs, and the biotech guy who just chose the balance sheet. So welcome Vinayak Jhunjhunwala.
Thank you, Vishwas, for that introduction. I'm super happy to be here. Thank you. So just let me say, just let me give a little bit of an introduction about me. You've done that
Yeah.
fantastically. So let me just add a little bit to it, and for your audience, and so they just get to know my background a little better. So as you rightly said, in school I was part of a lot of clubs and chapters. One of them included a computer club, which we actually founded. Me, along with my seniors, we actually founded a computer club in school called DPS Digits, which went on to host national level events from Kanpur, which was a very big deal in that time. Since Kanpur is a small place, not a lot of national events from school used to happen during that time, right? So so the journey started from there, the management journey. Then I thought, I'll become a doctor in a surprising twist of events. Uh, Basically, the reason was I didn't really feel comfortable with maths, and so let's try and see what this medical field is about. Let's try to crack it. But going down that path, I realized that it's a very difficult career to be in, and very, you need to have that passion for people, for medical, for biology to succeed in the field of medicine. And then I decided, okay, what's the next best thing, which merges my love for business? Then I wanted to see what will combine my love for biology, my love for tech, and my love for management. What is the closest intersection at which they all meet? And I figured out biotechnology is one field which is booming in India and has a lot of potential, going forward in the world. So I decided, okay, let's try biotech. Uh, and I went to Vellore Institute of Technology, VIT University, to do my biotech engineering. Right, it was a very, very interesting journey over there. So uh, some exceptions, some expectations met, some didn't. In my second year, I decided, okay, maybe research as a biotech vertical is not for me. I've always been a person who loves to execute, loves to work field in the field, in business basically. So, and India biotech is more focused towards research. So maybe that isn't the best place for me to be. So then I started again experimenting. What is the next best place? Where do I see myself? And I came across marketing as a vertical. So you can only. So I had this philosophy that you can only test the waters once you step in the pond, right? So that's what I did. I took up a marketing internship with one of the very well-known marketeers in India. His name is Sri Raman. So he was pub, pub head, digital head for Publicis in India, and is a GD, Google Developer Expert in marketing. I think he's the only one in India. So I approached him, and he was kind enough to take me on as an intern for my semester break. So I worked in the marketing domain for 2.5 months. Absolutely fell in love with it. The process, the ingenuity, the creativeness, the psychology that goes behind, right? The analytical prowess that you need to determine what is going on wrong. So very interesting. So after that, I was like, okay, this is a field which I like, and this is a field which I can really explore. And then I dug deeper into it, and then I again realized my passion for people. Somehow, if I could bring people and marketing people, but more people to be more central. So then I stumbled upon community management, right? So even in my college, I was part of a community called Google Developers Group, GDG VIT, which was basically a computer club slash chapter in VIT. So there, people were central. So community is all about people, and over there we grew GDG from 2,000 people to about 5,000 people in 3 years. We conducted events which had registrations of more than like 2 to 3,000 people registering for a normal event, right? Hackathons, offline hackathons, online hackathons. We've experimented, and and being from a non-tech background like biotech, and being in a developer running a developer community was a very interesting challenge by itself, right? Because you need to understand the lingo, right? You need to understand what an API is, right? If you are communicating with a developer and running a developer community, you need to know all these things. So very interesting challenge, which and it's all, I stumbled upon all this, right? It was never planned that I'm going to go to VIT and join a computer club. So serendipity is what I'll say happened. Yeah, from there, in an event at GDG, I met the co-founder at Slang Labs. His name is Kumar Rangarajan. He previously founded, so he was a speaker at GDG VIT's event. So I met him over there, and we, started talking. I was really impressed with what he was trying to build, what he's trying to build. And when I was looking for my final year internships, I decided, okay, I really like what he's doing, and I'm interested in the voice space. So let's see what he's planning. So fun fact was, then I joined Slang Labs. I approached Kumar. He said, "Man, we'll be glad to have you on board." And I joined in Slang Labs. So when I joined in Slang Labs, I was supposed to handle their community efforts, expand Slang's community effort with my history in managing Google developer groups, Google developer group VIT. But again, as all things go, nothing in life happens how you plan it. So when I was inside the company, we changed the directions of the company a little bit, and the whole plan around building a developer tool took a backseat, and we pivoted the product to more B2B business oriented uh, product, right? So then, as a generalist in a startup, you tend to do a lot of things, right? That's the whole point of being in a early stage startup, that you tend to get a lot of exposure to many things. And then I started handling their marketing, because we weren't doing community, so community expansion. So I started handling their marketing, and just found my, all the old things that I did 2 years back came rushing back in. And that's how I went from an engineer to a marketeer, as you have rightly said, from handling pipettes to handling emails,
Yeah, it's
marketing
today
emails,
emails. It's
right?
more of a balance sheet. Yeah, balance sheet is
Yeah.
kind of an, I always say this, even though when I'm doing some webinars on the management or something, I always say this to the people. Balance sheet is just for a number. People start pricing your company. They'll start pricing your efforts. That's how venture capitalists price it. They only see the valuation, then they start pricing it. They don't mind whether to throw the money. So yeah, because speaking of money, I just wanted to ask you this one question. You told about your journey as a community person to the marketeer back once again, where your experiences came into the picture. But what's that edge that a person working in a startup have over a person who is working in a well-built firm? I think you should be knowing this. If you are in a McKinsey, it's like adding a PhD to your MBA, kind of. you know
Mm,
Goldman Sachs,
mm,
JP Morgan, all these companies are coming out. But I feel
mm,
like, sometimes people get an opportunity very early that they might be not ready. But I just want to ask you this one question: what's that edge that a person can have,
mm.
or working in a startup or working on an MNC company which is like well furbished?
Right. So I think it's very, so it's not like one is better than the other, right? It's just the path that you choose, right? Now, and both have very valuable experiences, right? If you work in a startup or you work in an MNC, both teaches you two very different things, but are very, very important in their own regards, right? For example, let me just talk about the MNC. In an MNC, you learn the necessity of a hierarchy, structure, right? And you understand that every individual effort results into a very, very larger, like a very bigger milestone that a company achieves, right? It might be possible that because of your project that you did, now that you are a developer, let me just, because of that single commit that you made, right? In a small team, let's say in a team which is working on a small product, that culminated or snowballed into a much larger thing, in the, in a broader range of, when you see the picture of an MNC from 1,000 feet above, you'll find that that small commit made a this big of a difference, right? So so that is like one thing that MNC gives you, that it tells you about the structure of an organization, how an organization works. It teaches you the necessity of having a structure. It teaches you that individualistic impact, the small individual impact, can create a much bigger, much more, a lot of impact that you didn't even think of, right? Then, of course, when you are working in a MNC, you become a domain expert, right? You are working on one particular domain and one particular, uh, right? And so the idea of working in a MNC for a person who wants a good work-life balance, it gives you a good work-life balance, it gives you stability, right? So all of that is there in an MNC. Now, when you come to a startup requires a different mindset, right? A person who is working in a startup knows that he doesn't have a job security. He doesn't really, he doesn't have a set work profile, right? Because if in a company, if there are 6 people or 7 people, you don't, what you are basically have to become a jack of all trades, right? You need to put on a generalist hat and just firefight all the time. You learn, essentially, a startup teaches you how to solve a problem, or how to solve a lot of problems quickly and using hacks, right? It's like the how do you so the idea of a startup is to do things which others thought were impossible, right? Or you have to fight against all the odds to make something possible which others thought was impossible. Think of Tesla, right? Tesla had to basically fight against companies, set automobile companies, which have been settled for over 100 years. And there has been no EV startup, no automobile startup in the last 50 years in US, right? Now they had to come up with great ideas to, win against the Goliath. Like it's the same David versus Goliath story, right? So it essentially teaches you how to solve problems, how to work well with others, right? And it also requires a different mindset, right? If you're looking for a job security, if you want to become a domain expert, a startup might not be the best idea to work with, right? So this is for early stage startups. Now there are startups coming up which, even a Razorpay is a startup, right? A Swiggy is also a startup. right? But they're more late stage, more set startups. The idea that startups don't pay well, or that's an old philosophy, right? Uh, we have startups which are competitive or actually paying better than an MNC today, in a lot of cases, right? So I don't believe there is a big wage gap anymore in startup versus MNC. So in a late stage startup which is well settled, you can also become a domain expert. You can also learn multiple things, and it's easier to move around different verticals in a business. So I have personally preferred to work at a startup, and but I have friends who are working at companies like Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, or McKinsey, as you said, right? And they are also happy. Amex, PayPal, so they're also happy, and they have a different mindset. So it's all about how you want to grow, basically. Yeah.
How different is it to meet somebody who is in a management field? Because we are all in a tech field, and we actually have a different
Mhm,
accent to our emails also. you know
mhm,
when you are cold calling somebody, we don't actually go too technical, but sometimes when you're approaching somebody as a management, you need to be a little technical in terms of your jargons or anything
mhm,
like that. It need not have to be something like, i'm I'm calling somebody for my podcast who is an well-versed researcher in on operations management or on operations
mhm,
research. It can be anything.
mhm.
So how different is it to meet somebody who's in a management profile?
So for me, it's not different because I manage. I basically meet a lot of management people. But let me just try to structure your question a little bit better, right? So if I understand correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, Vishwa. So what you're asking is how how do you manage, as a being in management and managing developers or interacting with them?
Yeah,
How
and
how do
also
you
how
handle
about
that?
meet also how about meeting people who are in a management field? Of course, you have been meeting, but as a
Correct,
technician,
correct.
as an
Okay.
engineer,
So,
how was it different?
got it. Okay, okay. I understand. So, from a developer's perspective, how should they approach people in management fields, right? How should they talk to them? Okay, got it. So, very interesting. So, let me just answer the first side of the question, right? So, how do managers, or is it easy for management people to work with developers, right? So, if you have a technical background, right? If you have studied CS, if you have studied CS and you have to work with developers, it's fairly easy. When I say fairly easy, it's all relative, right? It depends a lot on your people skills. How do you talk? How and essentially a person who is in the management field is supposed to be good with people, right? Because you have to manage people. At the end, a company is not tables and chairs or MacBooks or iPads, right? It's people, right? So you essentially need to be a good people person. And then the second part comes around the developer side of things or the technical background of it. I have, believe me, I have met CTO uh, who is from a marketing background, right? Yes. So
Seriously?
very, yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you. So the thing is, you need to understand the basics of tech, right? You at the end, as a manager, you are not supposed to write code, right? You won't be the person who's going to be debugging the code. You need to know the at a high level. Okay, so this works with this, and if I have to, let's say, let me give you a good example. Let's take a pen for example, right? So you need to know what uh, the simplest is a pen, right? So what does a pen contain? It contains a refill, it contains cap, it contains a clicker, right? So and it contains a grip. So you need to know how all of these will work together, right? Now you might not know the chemical formula to how to create the ink inside the pen, but it doesn't matter. You have specialists who knows how to do that. Now putting it in context of the computer science or the development field, right? You don't need to know how a particular what is the inside, or how exactly a function is written, right? You need to know that these set of functions will do this, right? So as a manager, you need to know how to talk to developers, and if you have a good technical background, it helps you to understand these basic concepts. And if you don't, let's say you come from a background like I have, where I don't know like fundamentals of development, right? It's a much difficult hill to climb. I will be very honest, it's difficult, right? A PM who comes from a non-technical background has to work harder to gain the trust of people he's working with, right? And gain their respect. So a developer, if you cannot write code, if you don't know what an API does, or how much effort is required, right? And if you cannot sit with a developer and work with him, it's much difficult for you, right? Of course, you can make it happen. You can make anything happen in the world. It's just the amount of effort required is on a higher side. So what I would suggest is to every person uh, from a non-technical background who is into management, and especially in a field like ours where you have to manage developers, data scientists, right? To have or gain grasp on basics of development, right? Quickly. You don't necessarily need to know how to write code, but you need to know what works with what, and how all of them come together to play. And you'll have people in your team to do the rest of the work, right? Then it depends on how you manage them, right? If you are a micromanager, people will tend to not, be very. It becomes difficult. So you need to know, that people you are assigning the work to will be able to finish it, right? Trust them enough to deliver the best work that they are doing. So that's from the manager handling a technical side of things. Now coming to the second part of your question, how should a developer or a person in the technical domain approach a person in the management, as a management? So there I feel, so the idea of explaining something um, very simply comes into play, right? So today, if I have to, so developers, if you write an email which says, okay, so, I'm getting a null pointer exception in this line of code, and, this is happening, this function is not getting called because there's a, there's a, what do you call, a null pointer exception where we are overloading the method. And if you have a uh, and a global, let's say a global variable is not being called. So a person who is from a technical background, a manager who's from a technical background might be able to understand and help you out, right? But if he's from a non-technical background, you need to limit the jargon, because what will happen is it will be too complex for him to understand. uh, for him to understand what you're saying. So if you can explain something in a simple words, uh, it's definitely better. And I would always tell developers who are my friends, right? If you want to approach a person, uh, just write down what you want to say, right? Because when you write things down, it brings in a lot of clarity for both you and the person reading it, right? Because when you have to write, you have to think in a structured way. And developers are good at it. Developers are good at thinking structurally, right? Thinking in an analytical way and writing down. So write down those points and then send it across, right? If you approach someone to just, have a water cooler chat, right? Your thoughts are not structured. And then if a manager is not able to understand your thoughts, right? It's because he might lack some skills, technical skills, right? But I'm sure that when you are approaching a person, you already know his competency or you already know his background, right? So both can make efforts on both the fronts, right? So from manager side, he needs to understand tech better. From a technical person's side, he needs to understand how to put things in a more simple way, when they approach. And I would always suggest, like, write down your points before you go to somebody. Just shoot them an email and ask them, okay, so this is my idea, this is what I want to do, can we meet? Right? And the manager, if he's a good manager, he would be well prepared. If, let's say, you have written terms like he doesn't know of, right? Like, what is it? I want to set up a data lake or a data warehousing system to manage our data. So if he doesn't know, he'll read about it and come to the meeting, right? Or she'll read about it and come to the meeting. So that's the beauty of written communication. Yeah.
Yeah, no, communication is a biggest skill, because if teams don't communicate proper, let it be something like, yeah, I have experiences. Initially I didn't know how to branch in GitHub, and I didn't know how to code it.
Mhm.
So everything was committed, and almost had gone through a phase where I can never work on any version controls. Okay, it's not for me. I just
Mhm.
want to do something
Mhm.
of my own. So it never works like that. Because
Correct.
software development is a collective work. It's not like everything is
Collaborative.
me.
Yeah.
Everything is not
Correct.
me
Correct.
there.
Super
It's all about.
collaborative.
It's super collaborative. Yes.
Correct.
You spoke about how we have to just reduce the jargons, how we have to approach a management person. But let's just go a little academic here. I see a lot
Mhm.
of management people talking about digital marketing and everything. Of course, it's the
Mhm.
buzzword today. It's the buzzword today. If
Mhm.
people are not good in AI, the next option is do an MBA. Of course, MBA was a golden ticket once upon a time, where if you do an MBA, you will be lining up in a good job. But it's not true, because most of the
Yeah.
colleges most of the colleges are having MBA now, so most of the graduates are coming out. I just want to ask you this one question. What do you feel about the syllabus of digital marketing in India? I feel it's outdated. I feel it's really outdated. What do you feel about it? Because recently I
Mhm.
was reading a paper. I felt it's like probably 1,000 times advanced than what's the syllabus that we have today. It's a simple SEO based analysis and everything, but I felt something which there is a requirement for digital marketing to adapt to the new generation of concepts which are coming up. What do you feel about the
Mhm.
syllabus these days?
So I personally, I don't look at the syllabus for, I don't think of, you know, digital marketing as a syllabus that you need to know to do digital marketing, right? Um, so digital marketing is a very, it's like an umbrella term, right? It has a lot of things. And now, in India, we are a little behind, right, compared to the West. And there's a good reason for it, right? Because they are ahead of us. They have been ahead of us. The whole Silicon Valley came up, everything started over there, and we are behind for the, like, it's natural, right? If you're trying to catch up, it will take some time, right? But I'm very optimistic about India and digital marketing and the marketing scene in India, because I often see companies coming up with such innovative, cool ideas or hacks, um, to in digital marketing. So it's not like we are way behind. We are definitely behind. It's not like there's a 5 year gap. Uh, there was a time when India was 5 years behind West in digital marketing, but now that gap has considerably shrunk. What I would say, is could be one of our very big strengths in India, right? Because we produce so many engineers, we have to compete, right? Is our analytical skills. So we can do performance marketing, I feel, and that is underrated in India. And I've seen companies in the West take hire people from India to do their performance marketing, right? So performance marketing is a bit like data science. A bit, you need to be very very analytical, and marketing people are more creative than analytical, right? So you need to understand, if there is a bounce rate of 60%, why is it? Why am I getting a 60% bounce rate? Why am I getting a 0% bounce rate? And why am I getting a 100% bounce rate? So, for example, and those things require a very analytical brain, right? You might change a copy on a web page. You might change the text on the web page that a creative person can handle. But what is the impact of that change, right? Now think of that on scale. For example, Uber. was spending, I think, $600 million on digital ads, right? And during this whole, I think what happened was they had a lot of budget cuts. They had to constrain their spending. So at one of the places where the chief marketing officer, they were spending a lot of money, I think 60 to $70 million. He said, let's turn it off. It's fine. We'll lose some customers. And what happened was there was no change in the data. The number of people who were coming in, the number of signups they were getting, number of people they were taking the rides was exactly the same, right? So then you need to have that mindset. Now it's not just about a single Google Analytics account. You need data from 10 different sources, right? All that data is collated. Now, how do you analyze that data? Right, so that's performance marketing. So that's where I think India can really make an impact. But let me pull further and answer your broader question. Right, uh, uh, I personally don't know enough about what is the state of, what is the syllabus of digital marketing in schools like IIM or B schools. Right, what I know is you cannot learn digital marketing by going to a school. It's not possible. Okay, there is a reason. Digital marketing, you can understand the concepts, you can understand what Google ad is, what an SEM is, but you won't understand what, how an SEO, basically, if you have to rank a keyword on Google, you cannot do that sitting in a classroom. Or you have to run ads, you cannot do that, right? It needs a real world. You need to go, come and get your hands dirty, and then only you'll understand, right? So this entire point of learning digital marketing uh, in college becomes less relevant for me. What I think an MBA or a B school definitely provides you is how others have done it before, right? And what have been the good practices? So they break it, those things down. You understand, you read case studies on these things, right? So how did they select their channels? Why did they select the channels? Right? So those are things that you can learn or you can understand, right? But again, when you have to implement it, you have to get your hands dirty. It's like swimming, right? You can learn swimming theoretically by reading how to, what is a butterfly stroke, what is a backstroke. But will you be able to swim if I throw you in the water or if I throw you in the river? No, right? So that's the challenge of the entire thing.
Yeah,
So get your hands dirty. Yeah.
yeah, it's always that one thing. You have to get your hands dirty. Once you just get
Mm.
inside the place where, let it be a simple industry, let it be like a simple meetup. You can just go there, make some notes, okay, get to know the technology. Until and unless you go back home,
Correct.
do the same thing what you have done, you will not get it. It's simple. In
Correct.
everything,
Correct.
it's the
Correct.
same thing. I always had this notion, okay, where social media was never my criteria. I am active
So
on
just it's
LinkedIn.
a Vishal, let me just say one more thing to the previous point, right? Today, the relevance of a B school has reduced significantly because essentially all the courses are available to you for free on YouTube or on different Coursera, or the what you would have paid, 20, 30, $40,000 has come down to few $100 today, right? So there's no, you have you have access to, like, all the best content in the world, to all the best educators in the world now, right? So essentially, the idea of B school teaching you digital marketing has no meaning today. Yeah, but now we can move on. Yeah, so just
Yeah.
wanted to add that for your
Yes,
audience.
yes, yes. Yeah, you actually told the truth. That's what everything is all about. But I always had this phase in my life where I never thought, okay, social media will be something which is more
Mhm,
humongous. Like,
mhm.
I had a Twitter account in 2012. I think probably I was in class 7, I think so. Yeah, I had a
Mhm.
Twitter account during that time.
Too
It
young to
was,
be on Twitter,
yeah.
Vishwas.
Yeah, when I
Yeah,
saw how Twitter was moving, and there was Orkut, there was Hotmail,
right,
all
right.
the things,
Old times, old
old times
times.
funds, yeah, that those were actually making a lot of influence. After the Orkut
Hmm.
goes away, I told to myself, okay, being sustainable in a marketplace is something which is more unique. So taking on that note, there is an very bad notion of TikTok versus YouTube, all these influencers versus the common guys. There are a lot of things are coming up. What's the fate of social media tomorrow? You as a marketeer, I want your view.
So what's the fate of social media going? What's the future of social media? Interesting question. So social media, there's a trend going on, right? Um, let me. So how I see social media is, and it's gonna become. I at least I feel like that, right? So if you see a person who, you and me today, both have the same chance, both have the same platforms to reach to the same people, right? A person, let's say 10 other people who are on Twitter, I can reach those 10 people, you can also reach those 10 people, right? So what we both are on the same level playing field. Now, what will happen is on these social medias, the importance for creators will become much more. So we'll move towards a creator economy. And if you see, the trends of that are already underway. To give you an example, Twitter acquired Review, which is a email Substack-like service where you can sell email newsletters, right? The growth of Substack, right? The growth of building in public. Now, growth of Clubhouse. Clubhouse recently launched a creator fund. Snapchat also has a creator fund. YouTube is all about its creators, right? Of course, they monetize it with ads, but essentially, YouTube, you won't go to YouTube if no creators are there, right? Similarly, Facebook is also now working on its creator fund or pay people who are putting money on uh, Facebook videos, who create these Facebook videos. So what will essentially happen is till now the trend towards building your own audience, right? Because everybody is on social media now, right? There's no like new people joining social media is not any new thing anymore, right? Then now the challenge is getting people's attention on social media. You need to, and it will be more and more an individual person who has to capture that attention, build his own community. So every person who wants to have any influence or wants to do something on social media has to essentially carve out his own niche, and that's where we are heading. Right, that's why we all the, if you see, there's already this trend in the West where authors or journalists who were part of earlier part of bigger companies like, let's say, Washington Journal or Verge or New York Times have left these places and they have started their own Substack channels. Because what happens is, you you are doing quality journalism, you are producing good quality content, right? And that's getting masked by whatever else that is being clubbed together by Washington Times or New York Times or whatever, Washington Journal, New York Times. So you have to basically, now you have all the channels to reach to your audience one to one, right? And that is where we are heading. We are heading towards people will follow other people to gain value. And if you're not providing value, you just become a consumer. So there will always be that split, right? 1% of the people, sorry, 0.1% of the people create content. 1% of the people uh, basically engage with it, and 99% people just consume it. So the split will still be the same, but the number of people creating content would become much higher, and the value that a person derives or the person has as an individual with these one-to-one channels will increase much more.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we are heading towards a creator economy where all these services will become much more important. So for all those who want to start. It's fine if you are not a subject matter expert. If you want to, if you just try creating some content, try adding value already. It's fine if you don't know marketing, let's say, and you want to start a marketing newsletters. You can just start by curating what other people are writing and putting it out in a easy way. Yeah, so you should start with it today.
Yeah, everybody needs to start with it somehow or the other. Digital marketing will be a boom. Somewhere content consumption is going to increase because everybody is reading a blog. There were days where we were sticking on to the books, the good old days, but today ebooks have come. Audible is also there. There are other sources of knowledge where you can choose the alternative for every option that you have. You had a
Correct,
book,
correct,
you had an option. Now as an Audible,
correct.
there is new things. But I want to ask you this one question: what's this search engine optimization thing, SaaS, and all the things which are coming up these days, right? What are they going to be as an influence in a company or a firm which is going to work on customer base tomorrow? I was
Mhm.
talking to a person who was in a data science world, and he was searching content based on the Jimmy Choo, and Jimmy Choo was not available to such an extent. It's a brand, it's a big brand, but data was not that available. So of course SEOs have a huge influence, but how can they be actually influential in a firm's growth?
So if you are talking about specifically around SEO, I can give you an answer. But if you want to know broader things that, you know, a broad-based answer. So let me just go, as I've been answering your question from a narrow, from just SEO perspective, and then pull back to give you a larger theme. All right.
Yes.
So from an SEO perspective, SEO today on social media is dead. There's no organic SEO on social media. Don't even try. You cannot. So more and more or platforms, right, are turning down those organic knobs, right? But yeah, so what I was saying was ki, yeah, from an SEO perspective, right? Organically reaching people on social media it's very difficult as a for a brand, not as in for a brand, right? So organic reach on social media is not there anymore. But what is definitely there on Google, trying to rank high is definitely valuable. Today, putting in that effort, building your domain authority, building your brand authority with authoritative, good quality content is super valuable to any brand out there. Reason being, Google is still the biggest point of entry for anybody today, right? And I think it will be. The mediums of asking that question will change. Maybe we've already seen voice as an input mechanism, like voice search queries are 28% of the total search queries being asked on Google, right? And they're growing to 70% year on year. So it's a huge, like people used to earlier ask uh, ask Google questions via searching by typing. Now they are doing it via voice, right? So similarly, and I foresee this trend to continue. The share of voice-based queries will keep increasing, right? So now you need to, as a brand, you need to find more interesting ways to answer those, be on top for a voice query, right? Make your answers more conversational. Say, so those are small optimizations that we need to make, right? But the format will keep changing. But I see SEO on at least on Google, on other search engines, primarily Google, to be still relevant and be relevant for at least 5 to 7 years. Again, these are all conjectures. Nobody knows what will happen, right? Of course, but again, it's from my past experience and where I see the industry going, right? So that's definitely there. But at the same time, what I would say is, as a brand, you now need direct mechanisms to reach your audiences. So that's where I think world is heading. How can you build direct relationships with your customers? So brands need to figure that out, and some brands have already started doing that, right? They are coming up with interesting ways to directly reach um, audiences. So yeah,
Yeah, because we are, I know you're the organizer, I'm the assistant organizer of TFUG Bangalore chapter. We are coming out with a lot of events, and yeah, TF
correct,
Thursdays and
correct,
a lot of things. I see a lot of
correct.
commitment in you, but I just want to ask you this one question. What's the real commitment that is required for a startup when you are in a management domain? Developers के लिए होता है, like I didn't do the commit today, sorry for it. I didn't do the debugging today, sorry for it. So
Mhm,
what's the
mhm,
amount of commitment that is required from a management person in a startup? Because I've seen startups which have
mhm,
been flourished wonderful because of the good management team, good HR team.
mhm,
And I've also
mhm,
quarreled with many HR. Sorry for that. Sorry
mhm,
for saying that on the record. Because some people might not know the things which are behind the hood of a let it be a
mhm,
deep learning model or behind an engine which is
mhm,
running, a lot of
mhm,
things. I just want to ask you this one question: what's the real commitment and also the
mhm.
amount of happiness that you need to feel in order to work in a startup in the management domain?
Okay. So I would say you need basically managers have a multiplier effect in a company, right? What is a multiplier effect, right? If a developer doesn't do his job or doesn't do a commit today, right, that code might not be pushed. But if a manager and his time is wasted, he has wasted his time, let's say that day, and it's fine, right? You have an unproductive day. You in a week you didn't do your in a week in on one day you didn't do something that you were supposed to do that day, right? But as a manager, what happens is you have a multiplier effect. If you fail to give strategy or give a direction to your company, let's say you have a lag day or if you have a lag week, under you are working with, let's say, 10 people. All those 10 people are essentially headless chickens. They don't know where to go. So you have a 10x multiplier on you not doing your work has put 10 other people's time basically in the tank. They are not working as well because they don't know what to work on. It's not their fault, right? Essentially, that's why having good managers, having people with very strong commitments are necessary. And managers have to really take upon themselves as to understand this, that they have a multiplier effect in a company. If they work properly, everything compounds, right? If they are efficient, efficiency of their people who are they are managing also increases. You are much more clearer. You have clear communication. The time involved in setting context or clarifying things reduces if you are already very clear. Let's say you have written a great PRD, right? Very detailed PRD. A person, a developer's job becomes easy or easier. So that's where managers need to be very, very uh, focused in that sense, where they are very clear about uh, what they are doing and they need to understand if they don't have commitment, can other people's daily work gets affected. Now it depends on higher the rank, higher the manager you are, more people you're managing, that interest, that multiplier keeps increasing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, your profile also says you have actually built a CPM system, corporate progress performance management system. We also come across something called as an KPI, key performance indicator. It's a factor. All these
Uh-huh.
numbers have to be like proper and all these. Now, I just want to ask you this one question for the people who are aspiring to go for the management, who are aspiring to work in the field of
Uh-huh.
management, or else people
Uh-huh.
who want a shift in their career through an MBA. Let it be like they have done
Mhm.
engineering, they have been working for quite a while now. Now they want to
Mhm.
do their masters in MBA, so they are preparing
Mhm.
for their exams. What's the key word that you want to say them to keep in their mind when they are actually preparing for such exams? And also you can say your experience, how has your experience of working as a marketeer molded you to become a good marketeer now, and also how well can you develop yourself in the future tomorrow if you are given a greater chance after your masters, let me say MS or MBA that you're targeting now?
Hmm. Right. So, my again, I am, as you rightly said, and full disclosure, I'm preparing for my MBA right now. Right. So what happens is you need to know why you want to do an MBA. That's the question you need to answer, right? Because that why essentially drives you, gives you motivation. So when you start for the initial few months, you'll be motivated, but motivation dwindles very, very fast, right? Let's say you gave a mock exam and it wasn't good. Oh my God, I am the worst. Let's not do it. I won't be able to get selected, and you stop. You get demotivated. So that why is very necessary, and that why can be very, very different for very, very different people. A why for a person could be as simple as, in my undergrad, I didn't get the college I wanted, but now I'm going to work hard to get the college I want so I think can control my destiny. Why for another person could be, I want to be the best marketeer out there. So I know I want to learn from the very best people who have essentially written down the books for marketing. Right. So why can vary for various people, and all the whys are correct, right? Like, uh, if the why is just I want to earn more money, and I think by doing an MBA I can make more money because I'll get promoted easily, whatever. I mean, it might be more materialistic, but it's definitely, I don't hold, I don't say that's a bad why. It's definitely a great why, because at the end, you need money, right? So all these, so the whys are different for different people, but most necessary, but the most essential question is why, that you need to answer. Yeah. And regarding your question around how has marketing molded me and where I'm heading in the future, I would say marketing has taught me how people think, right? I want to understand that better. What drives people to click on something in a performance marketing role? A person is supposed to do that. But how and why what is the, why should we go with this approach versus that approach? Why? And that is based on the psychology of humans, right? If you are, you need to know what people think. You need to be accustomed to the socio-economic culture, socio-economic, factors that are involved in marketing, the market. Uh, so all those things culminated together. I want to get a holistic understanding, right? And then use that understanding in different domains. So yeah.
Yeah, that answers a lot and lot of questions. If you are a person, to the listeners, if you are a person, you are preparing for your CAT, EXAT, or any exams where you want to go for an MBA, first get to know your why and your purpose in an institution. It's not like company is just paying you the money or something. You're
Hmm.
actually trying to make yourself grow, because you can't go ahead in a day build a
Yeah.
firm which is as good as Morgan Stanley or else JP Morgan or anything. You need to go by the fact that you can't do that in a day. So it's giving a chance. So you have to respect that and you can
Hmm.
start working on it. Vinayak Junjunwala, thank you so much for this amazing podcast. You know, I
Sure,
think
man.
this is my second podcast on the management. One was with Andrew Drinkwater, where he told about building a management firm. Even though he had an MBA degree, he
Very
came
nice.
inside the data science. Now I'm doing with an opposite, from MBA to data science to technology to MBA. So yeah, I think
Nice.
this is
Yeah.
going to be a very thing. And thank you so much,
Yeah.
Vinayak
Yeah,
Jhunjhunwala.
man. Great to have you as an assistant organizer and soon to be organizer also, Vishwas. I'm sure the way you are doing work for TFUG Bangalore, it's amazing. So thank you for having me on your podcast. It's awesome. I hope your listeners have some, gets some wisdom. I don't know why they listen to me, but very cool to have you uh, have me basically, I thank you for having me, Vishwas. Thank you.